The sand did not take her. The desert was a place where even machines died. Ethan Voss had learned that the hard way when his atmospheric rover sputtered, blinked, and gave its final gasp under the glare of Veltha 3's binary suns. The heat had warped his instruments, the sand had chewed through his boots, and the silence had begun whispering doubts. He was 76 kilometers off course. He had 6 sips of water left. He should have panicked. Instead, Ethan did what humans had always done best. He adapted. He wrapped his coat around his face, plotted the stars, and started walking, and then, in the glint of the rising blue sun, he saw her. She was barely a silhouette at first, motionless, half sunken into a dune that collapsed inward like an open grave. Ethan's first thought was that it might be a trick of the light, or worse, a body, long dead and left by some previous expedition. But as he got closer, his pace quickened. It was a girl, or at least something like a girl. She was alien. That much was obvious. Her skin shimmered faintly like silver silk, bruised in deep purple patches. Her features were fine and delicate, almost too symmetrical. Her breathing was shallow, barely there. But what struck Ethan most were her eyes. They were open, unblinking, and they were staring right at him. He knelt beside her slowly, as if afraid to frighten her, though she was clearly beyond fleeing. Her lips were cracked, her hands curled tight against her chest as though defending some unseen wound. "Can you hear me?" he asked gently. She didn't respond. Her eyes were glassy, but not lifeless. Ethan unstrapped his canteen and soaked a strip of cloth with the last of his water. He pressed it to her lips. She flinched but didn't pull away. Her throat moved, swallowing. "You're still in there," he whispered. "That's enough." Her chest rose weakly. Her lashes fluttered. Then, barely audible over the wind, she made a sound, a word, a breath, a plea. She weighed almost nothing. Lifting her was easy, carrying her was not. Ethan wrapped her in his thermal blanket, slung her across his shoulders, and started walking toward the only place he knew might have a signal tower, the long-abandoned survey station at Ridgepoint. 20 kilometers. His legs burned, sand cut at his ankles. His mind screamed at him to stop, but each time he stumbled, he felt her heartbeat faintly against his back, still alive, still counting on him. He didn't stop. The station was more ruin than refuge. One solar panel worked. The transmitter was half buried under rock. Ethan pried it loose with bleeding hands, wired in his own comlink, and sent out a distress pulse. Human civilian requesting medevac. One injured alien. Immediate assistance needed. Coordinates attached. No reply. He repeated it every 30 minutes. Still no reply, so he stayed. He scavenged what he could. Filters, scraps of cloth, a cracked solar stove. He rationed heat and shelter, building a crude shade over her from scrap. He checked her breathing every hour. And when the stars rose, he sat beside her, just talking about Earth, the oceans, the sky. Things she probably couldn't understand, but might feel. The third night, she opened her eyes again. This time, she blinked, turned her head slightly. Ethan froze. "You're awake." She studied him. Her voice was no more than vapor. "Why didn't leave?" He smiled. "Because that's not what we do." Her gaze drifted upward to the stars. "You human," he nodded. Her hand moved slowly from the blanket, trembling. She reached toward him, not in fear, not in weakness, but almost like she was trying to touch something she'd never believed was real. Hope. And then, from far above the clouds, the evacuation lights blinked in the sky search craft. Finally, answering his call. Ethan stood up, shielding her eyes from the sudden brightness. "You're going to live," he said, and for the first time, she smiled. A name in the dust. The evac shuttle descended like a shooting star, tearing through the violet sky. Its silver hull shimmered in the dusk light, wind from its repulsors blowing sand in every direction. Ethan shielded the girl with his coat as the shuttle touched down just meters away. The hatch hissed open. Two medtechs in white armor emerged, scanning the area, eyes narrowing at the sight of the unconscious alien girl. One of them hesitated, the other didn't. "Ethan Voss?" the bolder one asked, helmet retracting to reveal a young woman's face. "Yeah," he nodded, shifting the girl in his arms. "She needs help, badly." The medic looked over the girl and frowned. "This isn't a registered species. No. Alliance clearance. We may not have the." "She's alive," Ethan snapped, louder than he meant to. "And she's someone. That should be enough." The medic paused, then nodded. "All right, load her in." Inside the shuttle's medbay, the alien girl lay under a stasis sheet, vitals stabilizing as the auto-diagnostics buzzed around her. Ethan sat nearby, covered in dust and exhaustion, sipping a hydration pack. His hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from fear, but from sheer emotional overload. "She said something," he murmured to himself. She spoke to me. Did she give you a name? The medic asked, still monitoring her condition. He shook his head. Just asked why I didn't leave her. That's not common, the medic replied. Most species we've catalogued don't trust easily, especially not when dying. Ethan looked at her again. She trusted me. The next day, orbitside at the new Athena medical station, Ethan stood behind a reinforced observation panel. The alien girl was unconscious again, but her vitals were stronger. Color had returned to her skin, pearlescent lavender now glowing faintly under the bioscanners. The staff hadn't found a match for her DNA. She was completely unknown to the Galactic Register. I want to stay, Ethan said to the physician in charge. The doctor raised an eyebrow. You're not part of her species. We're legally obligated to isolate unknown biologicals. She's not a thing, Ethan replied. She's someone I carried across hell. If she wakes up scared, she should see a face she remembers. The physician hesitated, then relented. 1 hour per cycle. No contact until she's medically cleared. On his third visit, she woke up again. This time, her gaze wasn't full of fear, it was full of recognition. You came, she said. Voice raspy. Yeah, Ethan smiled, pulling up a chair. You're not that easy to forget. She studied him for a moment. Your kind do not own. It was a statement, not a question. No, he said simply. We try not to. Looked down at her arms, now free of chains and wounds. I was marked, born to serve. You did not claim me. Why? Because no one has the right to own someone else, Ethan replied. Not on Earth, not anywhere. She went quiet. Her hands trembled slightly, perhaps from memory, perhaps from the strange, unfamiliar freedom. I need to call you something, he said after a while. She blinked. My designation is Corel, 4th line of Saruan. That's not a name, Ethan said. That's a barcode in disguise. She tilted her head. What is a name? It's what you give someone when they deserve to be known for who they are, not what they were made for. She thought for a moment. Then, I want a name. Ethan grinned. All right, let's start with Kaya. Kaya, she echoed. It is soft. You don't have to be hard anymore, he said. You're safe now. Outside the medbay, the galaxy spun, as usual. Empires postured, ships traded, wars simmered beneath political masks. But inside a small white room on New Atenor, an alien who had only ever known chains whispered her new name, aloud like it was a sacred secret. Kaia. And beside her sat a human, steady, and willing to walk through fire again if it meant she never felt alone. Her chains were gone, but the scars remained. Kaya sat upright for the first time, her body trembling not from weakness, but from unfamiliar freedom. The medbay felt too clean, too quiet. No electric shock buzzed at her slightest movement. Numbered eyes glared at her with ownership. No collar dug into her neck. Just silence, and the slow, steady breathing of the human who never left. Ethan sat cross-legged beside her bed, sorting a small datapad of human vids, documentaries, songs, images of animals and weather and oceans. Things Kaya had never seen but now stared at with wide, unblinking eyes. That one's called Rain, Ethan said, pointing at a clip of a storm rolling over a jungle. It's like the opposite of where I found you. Kaya tilted her head, fascinated. Water from sky. He smiled. Yeah, and thunder makes you feel small in a beautiful way. She flinched slightly at that. The word small had never been paired with beauty in her world. It had meant weakness, vulnerability, ownership, and yet Ethan spoke as if smallness was something to marvel at, not fear. Later that evening, Kaya was given a clean uniform, standard civilian issue, soft gray blue. When she touched the fabric, she recoiled not from pain but from confusion. No wires, no restrictions, no binding straps. She turned her gaze toward Ethan. I may wear this. He looked up from his seat. You don't have to ask me. You can wear whatever you want. That made her pause. Freedom still felt sharp. It cut deeper than chains. Ethan took her out into the med station's artificial gardens. A dome stretched above them, mimicking a twilight sky. Bioluminescent trees glowed with soft purples and greens. Small birds, synthetic but alive, in their own way chirped along magnetic paths. It was designed for comfort, peace, and healing. Kaya walked slowly, unsure of her steps. She stopped at a pond and stared at her reflection. Her own face startled her. No bruises, no brand, just her, just Kaya. What do you see? Ethan asked, standing beside her. She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, someone I don't know. That's okay, he said. You'll get to know her. She glanced at him, confused. Why are you still here, Ethan Voss? He gave a soft laugh. Because you're not done healing. I do not belong to you. I know. Then, why stay? He knelt by the edge of the pond, skipping a pebble across it. Because I don't stay for people who belong to me. I stay for people who matter. That word echoed in her. Matter, not property, not function. Matter. The next few days passed slowly. Kaya learned how to eat without asking, how to walk without flinching, how to sit in silence without fearing punishment. One night she dreamed of the desert again, but this time it wasn't her death. She said it was a figure carrying her through the heat, a silhouette, a heartbeat, a name. And when she awoke, she wasn't afraid. Back in the medbay, Kaya was cleared for release. She was now classified as a sapient refugee, pending interspecies protection protocols. The administrator gave her a temporary ID chip and basic credits. When she was asked where she wanted to go, she hesitated. "Do you have anyone?" the officer asked. She looked at Ethan and he smiled. "She's with me." They walked out of the station together, two silhouettes in the station light, a girl once bred for servitude, and a man who made the galaxy feel kind again, but in the shadows of the stars. Others were watching. Kaya was supposed to have died in that desert, and some would not forgive the human who interfered. The echoes that followed her. Kaya stood on the transport deck of the new Athanor orbital station, staring out at the stars. There were so many of them, endless, quiet, watching. "Do you ever wonder," she whispered, "if they remember what they did?" Ethan leaned against the railing beside her, who she didn't answer at first. Her hand instinctively touched her side, where old wounds had once bled. The skin had healed, but the memory remained. "The ones who sold me, the ones who watched." Ethan turned his head slowly. "They don't deserve to be remembered, but I do," she said. Her voice was low, controlled. "I need to remember, because forgetting lets them win." They took residence on a quiet moon colony Gorlan 5, a place where nobody asked questions, and survival was still a daily act of willpower. Ethan found work as a systems technician. Kaya helped him, learning about wires, code, and power grids. Her mind was sharp, and her fingers, once used only for obedience, now held tools with purpose. One evening, while repairing a signal relay, Kaya hesitated. The metal edge had caught the light, and for a second it looked like a shackle. Dropped it. Her breath trembled. Ethan walked over and picked it up. He said nothing, but he set it gently down and reached for her hand. "I still dream of cages," she said. "Then we'll keep building a world without them." But peace has a strange way of attracting attention. One day, a strange signal came through their private terminal. Not a broadcast, not a call, a marking. Ethan's fingers froze over the console. The encryption was ancient, but familiar. Kaya walked in, carrying a wiring harness. "What is it?" He looked up. "Someone's found you." Her body stiffened, like steel wires pulled tight beneath skin. "How you told me you were part of the fourth line of Saruan. That's a royal designation, isn't it?" She didn't reply. "I did some research," Ethan continued. "That line vanished entirely. But the ones who did it, the overlords, they're still out there, still hunting strays." Kaya's face grew cold. "I was not just bred for service. I was heir to one of the oldest bloodlines on my world. I was meant to kneel until I broke their throne with my silence, and now they want to finish the job," Ethan said grimly. That night, they prepared for escape, but Kaya didn't want to run anymore. "I don't want to disappear again," she told him. "I want them to see me alive, free, unbroken." Ethan paused. "You sure? That'll make you a target." "I already am." He stared at her, a mix of pride and dread in his eyes. "You know, on Earth there's a phrase for people like you," he said. "What is it?" "Revolutionary." The next morning the stars looked different. A ship arrived in orbit, silent, matte black, no registration. Kaia watched it through the viewport, her fists clenched. "That's them," she said. "They're scouts. They always come before the chains." Ethan checked the blaster hidden in their supply locker. He wasn't a soldier, but he'd made a promise the day he lifted her from that desert she would never face them alone again. He handed her a transmitter. "What's this?" she asked. "A voice amplifier. We're going to let the galaxy hear your story." She stood before the colony's main comm tower, the silent ship looming overhead like a shadow of her past. But Kaya wasn't afraid anymore. Not of them, not of their memory. "I was supposed to die," she began, voice firm, echoing across the frequencies. "But a human carried me, not because he owned me, because I mattered." Across the stars, the old masters heard her voice and, for the first time, felt fear, because the girl they thought was buried was now speaking for 1,000 more, and the galaxy was listening. The message that shook empires. The colony was never meant to be important. Gorlan 5 had no strategic value, no rare minerals, and no political leverage. But the moment Kaya's voice echoed across open galactic frequencies, The world turned into a spark, an ember poised to ignite dry kindling. The com tower's transmission had been short, no more than 2 minutes, but it spread like wildfire. Pirates, merchants, fringe scholars, diplomats, and outcasts replayed it across distant sectors. Who was the alien girl with the strange, regal accent? Who was this human she spoke of? And why did her words sound like both prophecy and defiance? On the dark ship looming overhead, the response was far more calculated. Subject Carol of Saruan has made contact with unrestricted media. A voice rasped through a blackened command deck. A subordinate answered with a mechanical hiss. Orders, my lord. The figure turned toward a star chart, focusing on Earth's quadrant. Silence her and burn the human. Ethan knew they were coming. He had seen enough border skirmishes in his military years to recognize the signs: jammed comms, disabled satellites, power surges disguised as technical glitches. The colony's skies were too quiet, the wind too still. Even the birds, fake though they were, had stopped chirping. Kaya didn't ask him to stay, but he stayed anyway. He reinforced the main compound, rewired emergency fallback systems, and trained the colonists to run, not fight. Not everyone was brave, but they trusted him. They won't stop, Kaya said as they stood together on the platform overlooking the jungle below. Then we don't stop either, Ethan said. We show them what happens when you chase someone with nothing left to lose. Kaya turned her face to him. I have something now. What's that? You. That night, the attack. Kane. Silent engines roared to life above the clouds, and a dozen black-armored drop pods rained down like the fingers of fate. Each unit carried elite subjugation, troop stall, reptilian soldiers bred for obedience and brutality. The colony's outer perimeter went dark. Ethan activated the defense grid. Electric pulses surged through buried emitters, knocking out 2 pods mid-descent, but the rest landed. The first clash happened in the hydroponics dome. Colonists screamed as soldiers stormed through the fields. Ethan fought like a man-possessed, blaster in one hand, stun shield in the other. He wasn't a hero, just someone who wouldn't let her be taken again. Kaya, meanwhile, did something no one expected. She walked outside, into the firelight, and fear, and stood tall before the invaders. No more, she shouted. A dozen armored heads turned. You will not take me again. I am not your property. I am not your failure. I am your ending. The lead soldier aimed his weapon and stopped. Behind Kaya, Ethan emerged with a device. It hummed with ancient code. What is that? Kaya whispered. A truth bomb, he said. Broadcasts identity markers and royal heritage to every ship within 100 light years. If they kill you, the galaxy knows exactly who they executed. Kaya blinked, stunned. You traced my bloodline. I preserved it. She took his hand. The soldiers hesitated. Their orders were to kill, but killing a royal heir publicly was political suicide. The overlords who sent them thrived on secrecy, control, hidden history. If Kaya became a symbol, their entire system could collapse. So the commander stepped forward, visor hissing. Open, his eyes were cold, but his voice was softer than expected. You should not exist. Kaya stepped closer. And yet, here I am. You've doomed this colony. No, she said. You have, if you strike. The silence dragged like a blade. Then the commander gave the signal. The soldiers lowered their weapons, and one by one they retreated to their pods and lifted off, leaving behind the only thing they ever feared, a survivor who spoke. After the dust settled, Kaya stood in the clearing with Ethan. She touched her chest, just below her heart. I thought I would feel victorious. You don't. No. I feel ready. For what? For the next fight. For the others still in chains. For those who haven't found someone to carry them yet. Ethan looked at her, eyes full of fire and softness all at once. You want to start a war? She smiled. No, I want to start a movement. End of part 5. Would you like to continue with part 6, where Kaya's revolution begins to echo through the stars? Or should I create a cinematic YouTube video description, a Leonardo AI image prompt, a thumbnail text, 3-5 words? Let me know how you'd like to continue this epic and emotional HFY tale. You said, continue part 5, more unique and lengthy. ChatGPT said, absolutely. Here is a more unique and extended version of part 5 of your HFY story titled, She Was Dying in the Desert, Until a Human Carried Her to Safety. HFY Sci-Fi Tale. Part 5. The day the sky trembled. The wind that day carried an unnatural silence, so quiet that even the leaves on Gorlin's jungled outskirts seemed to hold their breath. Kaya stood barefoot in the soil behind the colony's relay station. She was planting her hands into the warm dirt, grounding herself. She was no longer the hollow girl left to die in the sands. no longer just a voice broadcast into the stars. Now, she was becoming a symbol. Inside the outpost, Ethan was pacing. His instincts told him something was wrong. For hours, their local traffic node had been flickering short bursts of encrypted data. Stuttering pings, too regular to be random. They were being tracked, and not by pirates. By something worse. It began just after midnight. A glowing fissure opened in the sky, followed by a warping boom that shattered windows across the settlement. A black ship emerged, not massive, but purposeful. A hunter's ship, not here to fight a war, just to reclaim one lost asset. Its design was unmistakable, etched with silver insignias of the Saruan enclave. It resembled a dagger, terrifying, ancient. Ethan grabbed his rifle and ran to Kaya. She didn't flinch at the sound. Instead, she stood tall, eyes locked on the descending vessel. "They came faster than we expected," Ethan muttered, checking the power cells in his weapon. "I hoped they would," Kaya said quietly. "Let them see what I've become." The entire colony was locked down, lights flickered red. Families, huddled in bunkers, children cried in silence. The people of Gorlan 5 had no military, no shields, no fleet. All they had was one human and one alien girl with a past written in pain and fire. The ship touched down without ceremony. No soldiers marched out, just one figure. He was tall, cloaked in obsidian armor marked with Saruan royal glyphs. His helmet was angular, his presence commanding. Designation Carol. The figure spoke in a voice that carried across the wind. "You are a traitor to your line. Your survival is a legal impossibility." Kaya stepped forward, her voice steady. "I am not a designation. I am not your relic." The figure reached up and removed his helmet. Ethan's eyes narrowed. The face was too smooth, too perfect. "Augmented, you were created, Coral," the agent said. "Bred for continuity, not chaos." "Then why do I feel more alive than you?" His jaw twitched. "You are a breach in order. Come with me, or be reduced." Ethan stepped beside her, lifting his rifle. "She's not going anywhere." The agent barely looked at him. "You are irrelevant." Kaya smiled at that. "He's the only reason I'm still alive. Irrelevant doesn't carry someone through a death-world sun." The agent flicked his hand. A pulse blade extended from his gauntlet. "Very well." Suddenly, blasters roared. A firefight erupted. Ethan dove forward, shielding Kaya as the agents struck. Their fight was brutal, fast and close. Ethan's strength was human, but his resolve was unbreakable. He fought with the fury of someone who had carried hope through hell. Kaya wasn't idle. She activated the emergency beacon in her bracelet, something Ethan had upgraded weeks ago. It sent a burst signal not just to local systems, but to every nearby resistance node, pirate outpost, even forgotten Terran colonies. It said, "The lost princess stands. Aid her." The agent landed a blow, knocking Ethan to the ground. He raised his blade again, but Kaya stepped between them. "No," she said. She reached out and touched the side of the agent's helm, where hidden, override glyphs remained. Her fingers traced an ancient code one only a Saruan royal could access. The armor locked. The agent froze. "You forgot what I am," she whispered. "You erased me from history. But history has teeth." With a sudden burst of force, she activated the override. The armor overloaded. The agent collapsed in a heap of convulsing metal. A hush fell over the colony. But before anyone could breathe in relief, the skies above cracked again. Dozens of ships, but they were not Saruan. They bore flags Kaya had never seen: scraps and fire, rebellion and grit. Signals from slave worlds, from dissidents, from those who once whispered of her family line and secret prayers. And now, they came to answer her call. The resistance had heard her. Ethan limped to her side. "You just woke up a galaxy." Kaya looked up at the stars, bruised and beautiful. "No," she said. "I reminded them we were never asleep." The throne made of dust, the skies of Gorlan 5 had turned into a constellation of rebellion. Kaya watched as ships of every make and origin touched down. They weren't sleek or polished like the Saruan vessels. These ships bore scars, plasma burns, broken hulls held together with faith and fury. Pirate vessels, smuggler rigs, ancient Terran defense drones, even retrofitted mining barges, now bristling with weaponry they'd come from slave worlds, from dead colonies, from the far edge of forgotten space. Not because Kaya promised victory, but because she had proven one thing: the Saruan bled. And if they could bleed, they could fall. Ethan limped beside her, leaning slightly on a metal crutch fashioned from an old satellite beam. "You sure this is what you want?" he asked. Kaya didn't answer immediately. They stood on a hill overlooking the landing bay where Alisum Noble, some criminal, all angry, were forming a makeshift council. She turned to Ethan. You carried me when I couldn't walk. Oh, the universe, that same strength now. He looked at her, eyes tired but unwavering. Then we give them hell. The first resistance meeting was chaos. Dozens of species speaking in overlapping frequencies. Bitter captains who distrusted anything resembling royalty. Hackers and mercenaries. Even a cybernetic priest from the ruined moon of Cirthus Kaya stood before them, not as a queen but as proof I was created to serve. She began to bow, to submit. They burned my name, sold my body, left me in the desert to die. She paused, letting silence soak the room. But a human carried me, not because he was commanded, because he chose to. That line made the room go still. Kaya raised her voice. Now I choose to carry others, not as a monarch, but as a weapon they'll never see coming. After that, the strategy began. The Sir controlled 13 major systems, but their grip was tightening out of fear, not strength. Supply lines were stretched. Internal purges were destabilizing their own noble houses. Ethan spent nights with tech crews, mapping weak points. He tapped into surveillance networks, located labor camps, and cross-referenced known rebel signals. Kaya, meanwhile, did something more dangerous. She broadcasted again. Short messages, personal, emotional. I was supposed to die. You may think you're forgotten, but I see you. I hear you. Each message spread faster than the last. They called her the Desert Flame, some called her Queen of Ashes, but she never corrected them, because the symbol mattered more than the title. One night, in a quiet grove behind the colony, Kaya found Ethan sitting by an old beacon fire. He was looking at a photograph, a printed one, rare these days. It was of him, years ago, standing with a Terran squad, all gone now. You never told me what you lost, she said gently. He looked up. That's because I didn't lose it. I gave it away. She frowned. My people, my past, all sacrificed chasing missions that never meant anything. Then I found you. And for the first time, it wasn't about orders, it was about choice. Kaya sat beside him. I didn't choose to be born, but I choose now to rise. He smiled softly. We're both children of things we never asked for. But maybe that's why we fight harder. Then came the message that changed everything. Intercepted on an old rebel frequency. Buried in distortion, but unmistakably real. High Council of Saruan confirms Carol lives. Execute on sight. Burn Gorlin 5. It wasn't a warning. It was a declaration. The Saruan were scared. They were coming with everything. The next days were a blur. The resistance hardened their positions. Generators were redirected to shield arrays. Miners became engineers. Children were evacuated to bunkers. Drones patrolled the skies. Makeshift turrets were mounted on old farm machines. Kaya didn't hide. She trained daily, practiced hand-to-hand combat, delivered speeches to weary crews. She didn't promise survival. She promised legacy. If I fall, let my bones tell our story. And they believed her, because a girl once left to die in the dirt had become the voice of 1,000 worlds. On the eve of the invasion, she stood with Ethan atop the outpost ridge. The stars glowed cold, and above them, Saruan warships began to flicker into views, leak, merciless, endless. But Kaya didn't flinch. They think they're hunting a child, she said. Ethan raised his rifle. Let's introduce them to a lion. The fire she left behind the Saruan armada filled the night sky like a blanket of ash. Their ships hovered in silence, hundreds of them, shaped like curved blades, humming with power and arrogance. Above the colony, the sky had turned crimson, lit by the engines of an empire that had never lost. Inside the colony, no one slept. Children clung to blankets, elders whispered old prayers. Fighters checked their weapons in silence, and Kayawans abandoned in the desert like forgotten cargoes. At the front gate, an armor etched with her own name, not the one they gave her. Ethan stood beside her. You know we're outnumbered, he said. She nodded. But we're not outwilled. The first wave came just before dawn. Dropships screamed through the clouds like comets, slamming into the jungle with brutal precision. Outpoured Saruan soldiers, faceless, armored, trained to kill without question. But this time, they met resistance. The colonists didn't retreat. They fired back. Old mining lasers had been converted into turret cannons. Drone swarms disrupted. Troop formations. Hackers hijacked landing beacons and redirected incoming ships into the riverbanks. And in the heart of the battle, Kaya moved like fury incarnate. She fought with a blade in one hand and a broken banner in the other. A flag stitched together from rebel rags and family crests, a symbol for those who had none. Everywhere she passed, Morale surged. Everywhere she fought, the Soruan faltered. Ethan coordinated the defenses like a conductor leading an orchestra of chaos. He barked orders, patched injured fighters, and held the western ridge with a sniper rifle older than most starships. He never let Kaya out of his sight, because he knew what the Soruan feared most, not her rebellion but her survival. If she lived through this, she would become legend. And legends can't be erased. By midday, the colony was on fire, but the Soruan were bleeding. They had expected to crush a pocket of resistance, not awaken a storm. Their communications were jammed, their commanders were dead, and worst of all, the people were smiling as they fought. Kaya's message had spread mid-battle. Hidden transmitters broadcast her voice system-wide. I am Kaya, born of chains, raised in fire. This is not the end of us, it is the end of your silence. That transmission was picked up by 10 other colonies, then 30, then hundreds. The Soruan realized too late they hadn't brought a fleet to a battle. They had brought a spotlight to a revolution. Near dusk, the High Commander of the Soruan fleet landed personally. He was unlike the other Staller, with a living exosuit that shimmered like obsidian water. His face bore no expression. His voice was cold mathematics. He walked directly into the colony square, unarmed, as the fires burned behind him. Kaya met him. He stared at her. You could have ruled. I still can, she replied, but not over the broken. He stepped forward. You are unfinished, a weapon without calibration. You were never meant to lead. Kaya raised her head. That's what makes me dangerous. They fought without words, blade against blade, flesh against machine. The commander struck with the precision of centuries. Kaya countered with the fury of a world reborn. Ethan watched, ready to interfere, but she didn't need him now. She wasn't the girl he had found dying in the desert. She was something more. At last Kaya disarmed him. Her blade hovered at his throat. He sneered, go on, kill me, make yourself what they always said you were. But Kaya dropped the blade. No, she whispered. I choose the path they never let me have. Then she stepped back, turned her back to him and walked away. He lunged in rage and Ethan fired. One shot, clean, final. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun, without their commander. The Soruan ships lifted off. Some fled, some were seized by rebels already en route, and in the distance, across a dozen star systems, uprisings began to spark. Kaya had become more than a survivor. She had become a signal. Weeks passed, the colony rebuilt. Walls were reinforced, gardens replanted, songs rewritten. No longer afraid, Kaya stood at the edge of the jungle, watching the wind carry seeds across the blackened earth. Ethan stepped beside her. You started something, he said. No, she replied. We did. He smiled. Still want to disappear into quiet farming life? She laughed. Maybe, after the galaxy stops needing us. And if it never does, Kaya turned to him, then we stay together. That night, under starlight, a small stone was placed near the fire pit. It read, she was dying in the desert, until someone chose to carry her, and in doing so, he carried us all.